Greetings, my gentlemen. Welcome back to the Gentleman's Chats.
I'm Rehash, the stirrer of chaos.
I'm Gent. Who are you talking to? Oh, I don't think he can see the audience.
Well, it would take too much time to explain the concept of the fourth wall. We'll do it after it.
What are you two even talking about? Look, just state your name with your obvious German accent and we can get the show on the road.
It's not fake! It is real German! I am German! And I've already told you, my name is The Brain.
So with that being said, here is the amazing digital circus.
The episode opens up with a dream sequence where Pomni is having a massive nightmare of not only her being in the digital circus, but also she began the process of abstracting, causing her to glitch out. The dream takes a hostile turn where she's thrown into a large pit, where we see Kane, Jax, and Ragatha as they all mock her and saying that they're going to forget about her, dooming her into a life of hell and darkness in the cellar with the other abstract creatures. And then she wakes up and glitches out.
Yeah, she's still in the amazing digital circus hell, but at the very least she's not abstracting. And then she gets a visit from Ragatha, who apologizes for having such a rough first day, but she hopes that this day could be a little bit more on track of how the digital circus is supposed to run. And Pomni isn't exactly thrilled, but goes along with it. We then hard cut to Kane and Bubble, who introduce us to the next adventure. Apparently some Candy Kingdom has gotten all of its syrup taken, and it's their job to take it back from the dastardly bandits.
Sticky.
Very sticky indeed.
Sounds.
Bubble, you can't say that.
Okay, I already like the tone for this one so much better. It's not spoon-feeding us everything, but it is giving us enough context clues to understand the situation of they're all in, that they're never getting out of the digital circus.
You mean when they get out, right? I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the show, trying to escape the digital circus.
Oh no, none of them are getting out. Well, maybe Pomni, but the rest of them are history.
Oh, come on, it's only episode 2. Gent. They said in episode 1 in the pilot that they've been there for years. How long do you think a human body can last without sustenance? Light, water, food. They got none of those things. So wait, you're saying
the digital circus, which is their digital prison, is the only thing that's keeping their digital consciousness alive. You're welcome. I ruined the show.
Well, it doesn't look like Zooble wants to participate in this event, so it's just going to be the main cast again. Well, she is part of the main cast, but main cast except Zooble.
Doesn't matter, as they go to the Candy Kingdom. So are we going to the Adventure Time universe, or what?
Nope, they're off to this big pink-colored landscape where they meet the innocent civilians of the Candy Kingdom, who are all those weird, posable stickmen that artists use.
It's also here that we see that this game was definitely more catered to kids. Ragatha does try to put a positive spin on the whole ordeal, but even Pomni, a 25-year-old apparently, is not impressed with the sugar-coated softness of the Candy Kingdom.
Okay, I will admit it. I like this episode way better as a first episode than the pilot. So much more information coming across all at once, and it feels a lot more natural, a lot faster, and it's not directly stated directly in your face. Well, in fairness to the pilot episode, all it was really meant to doing was showing the vibe that the show was going for, as well as the horrors that await. This feels a lot more like an actual episode, rather than a pilot, which is why it works so much better as an episode 1. But I guess they just decided that the pilot episode was good enough, and it is good enough for an episode 1. But this one definitely is better.
So the digital candy princess welcomes her brave knights into the kingdom to rescue the syrup, and offers them a full oil tanker to get it back.
Oh, this is going from Adventure Time to Mad Max.
Well, we cut to the villains of the arc, which are a bunch of gummy marshmallow alligators with Australian accents. And they need the syrup in order to help their village and their mothers.
So a chase scene fight breaks out where all of the characters show off their biggest strengths, weaknesses, and comedic timing.
Kinger is confused but got the right spirit. Ragatha is trying to hold everything together. Pomni is just trying to survive. Gangle, that ribbon thing, is just following orders even if she thinks it's counterproductive to what they're actually trying to do. And the one who's most proactive out of all of them would definitely be Jax, but that's only because he wants to cause as much devastation and chaos as he possibly can.
Everyone all right?
Can you repeat the question? I couldn't hear you over the knives.
You know, while I do respect Jack as a chaos-driven anarchist character who doesn't care about all the devastation that he leaves in his wake, I do have to admit, Kinga is a vibe to be with. I'd much rather be with a character that just pulls with the chaos rather than someone who goes out of their way to try to cause as much devastating chaos, especially if it's at the expense of others.
So the chase scene ensues and all chaos erupts. At some point, Pomni accidentally falls onto the other tanker, but they do try to rescue her in the only way Kinger knows how. Randomly.
Honestly, I'm learning more about the characters here than I do in the pilot. It doesn't feel like they're actually archetypes, it actually feels like they're characters, and I appreciate that.
And it's a fun and engaging way. But through cartoon shenanigans, our gang ends up falling into a massive chocolatey covered river, while Pomni and the bad guys accidentally glitch into a rock, and the truck gets sent hurtling into the air, and Pomni is sent under the map, along with one of the gummy alligators. Well, I guess the good vibes are over. Time for the horror. Okay, the truck flying into the air. I get that. That's glitched out. Them falling through the map. Okay, classic video game glitched out. I've even used it myself in Skyrim. But why are there flying teapots everywhere? Am I not understanding this reference to anything? Is it referencing anything? Somebody explain in the comments.
So the alligator, not understanding what's going on, proceeds to run around the map in order to try to find his buddies. And you know what they say when somebody's trying to look for trouble? They find it. And he finds it.
The Gumigator finds the asset model area where Kane was keeping all of the models for his NPCs, including himself. It's here that he's starting to wake up to the reality of what he is. And then Pomni falls down, and he begins asking her, what the hell is this place? What's going on? Effectively asking a bunch of questions that a regular AI program should not be asking. And Pomni answers all the questions. We even get a heartbreaking scene where he's asking why can't he even remember his mother? And why isn't she in here with them?
Even though it's clear he doesn't want to hear the answers, he asks, what is happening? Well, the idea of a non-playable character suddenly gaining sentience and realizing what they are and what's going on, and what their life actually is nothing new. I've seen it plenty of times in media before, but this is the first time I think I've seen it where it truly does show the tragedy of the situation. If I had to compare it to anything, I would actually compare it to the original Toy Story movie, where Buzz Lightyear first discovers he's not actually a space ranger. He's just a toy. Except this one hits so much worse, because he's not even the main character or something to be looked to. He's just a throwaway side character. So we cut back to the circus gang, as Ragatha is worried about Pomni as the others are worried about themselves. But then they're approached by a giant sludgy fudge monster, who wants to devour them whole. But Ragatha explains they're not candy, and so he backs off. It's here that Jax offers him a deal. He wants candy, and he had key to the candy kingdom, and he can eat to his heart's content. And since the creature seems to not mind, then he agrees immediately to possible cannibalism. We then cut back to the underground, where Pomni is actually attempting to try and get them out of there by getting the trucks to move, while the alligator gummy is currently, well, having an existential crisis about being told what he is and what his purpose is. Pomni asks for his assistance, but he is a broken man. He sees no point in going on and living. But here, Pomni tries to connect to him. He may be an NPC, but he also has a choice, and that's something not many NPCs get. She offers him a place among the others in the digital circus.
I'm not even sure if that's allowed. Is that allowed?
No idea. But, as there's nothing else he can do, as he's meant to be forgotten anyway, he figures, why not? He gives his name is GUMIGOO, and he only asks that Pomni not reveal the secret to his mates, and takes her up on her offer of joining them in the digital circus. So the two work together to put some blocks underneath in order to glitch out via the truck. And they get launched like a space shuttle through the digital space where they pass several teapots.
Seriously, what's with the teapots?
And manage to make it back to the upper map.
You know, I hope he kind of stays, because he could be, like, liberating all the NPCs and trying to maybe do a whole revolution and maybe beat up Jack for beating them up. I don't know, this is an indie production, remember? Side characters like this don't usually survive for very long.
So we cut back to Fudge and the gang, where they're on their way back to the Candy Kingdom with all their loot. And Ragatha is still racking her brains on Pomni. And she seeks advice from Kinga, the crazy one.
And Kinga actually gives some pretty solid advice. That it's gonna take time for Pomni to adjust. It's still hard for me to take him seriously with the bucket on his head. But before long, Pomni and GUMIGOO shoot out of the ground and land right on the Fudge Monster's head. Pomni reunites with the circus mates, GUMIGOO reunites with his friends, and now there's 2 trucks, each one filled with syrup. So technically, they can take the one truck back to the Candy Kingdom and save the other truck to go back to the village. Everyone wins!
Except for Jax, who had no sort of chaos or epic destruction of any kind, and he's sulking. A boo-hoo.
Though it is nice of the Ragatha to try to comfort him. Pomni introduces GUMIGOO to the rest of the main cast, and even they're confused of if he's allowed to join them, but hey, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So, they all go back to the Candy Kingdom. There's all celebrations, there's all thank yous. The generic Queen of Candy is super thankful and wishes them off as they go to execute GUMIGOO, which is totally what's going to happen. And Jax'll open the gate, allowing the Fudge Monster to come and eat everybody, but they run through the portal before any consequences ensue.
And here comes Kane, and he welcomes them back, and
I gotta get used to this.
Oh, looks like one of these guys made it through.
Wait, what?
Well, just screw my idea! So, yeah, Kane just straight up murdered GUMIGOO.
well, we don't actually know if he's dead. If cartoons have taught me anything, unless I see a body, then I'm not going to believe any death. He's probably just transported to someplace else, but we were made to look like it was death.
But regardless, Pomni is just sit there to process the information of her new friend's possible death. But then Ragatha and Zoombul show up and ask if Pomni wants to attend the funeral of their sad clown friend, Kaufni. And she agrees. Apparently, they hold a funeral of sorts every single time one of their friends abstracts, as a sort of final send-off. And the episode ends with a montage of everybody giving presumably sad speeches of all their memories, with a character that we only known through their abstractions. But the fact that all of them, except for Jax, seems to have fond memories, and thinks about them honestly, is kind of nice, sappy, and strangely sickly sweet in a sad way. Pomni also seems to be more reassured about her place in the digital circus, as the vivid dream of her falling into the dark abyss was edited a little bit with all the hands of all the digital circus residents catching her. And it ends with a zoom out, where we can only presume the type of adventures that they're going to have moving forward. And that was The Amazing Digital Circus, and while I did love the original episode, this one genuinely feels like a true first episode. I love this one even more. It's amazing what happens when you just slow down the pacing and let the audience breathe for 5 seconds.
It's amazing how just slowing down just a teeny bit manages to turn a B+ into an A-.
I like thinking that this episode was dedicated strictly to help Pomni more realistically adjust to the circus environment, since she was still kind of the outsider looking in when this episode started, and by the end of it, we see that she's finally become part of the family, so to speak. Albeit Jax is still on the edge.
The introduction of the GUMIGOO was an interesting idea, though we have seen the concept before. But it's also nice that they left it open-ended of whether or not he's actually dead.
I don't think anybody actually dies in the digital circus. I think even the ones who have abstracted, as they called it, aren't actually gone. It's just that Kane or none of the others knows really how to fix a mind that's already broken.
So I didn't really touch up on it on the last episode, so I'll go ahead and jump on the bandwagon this one. It's pretty obvious that Kane is an AI, or an artificial intelligence in this digital realm, and his goal seems to be specifically auto-generating adventures for the party. He also seems to be a AI that's built to handle children, not adults. Especially not adults who haven't left in God knows how long. They said years at this point?
Which only goes to fuel my theory that all of them, except for maybe Pomni, are all dead, and what we see before us is all that remains. Literal ghosts in a machine.
9, that is a possibility, but I don't choose to believe that hypothesis.
Well, I can't refute your hypothesis on it being a full-on ghost in a machine. I think the most likely solution is that their brains were scanned and they were uploaded, but several parts of their memories could not be replicated, which is why they only remember bits and pieces of themselves.
In other words, they all are artificial intelligences, but they all think they're human.
That would be a good twist, but right now we know next to nothing about the characters outside of what they are right now. But the only way we're going to get those is to watch the next episode. So, I guess you'll just have to tune in next week. But until then, we're the Cartoon Gentlemen.
I'm Rehash.
I still don't know who you're talking to, but I am Zebrain.
And I'm Gent. And we will see you all next time.